In the year 2000, a small DVD by mail startup asked Blockbuster to buy them for $50 million. Blockbuster said no. 10 years later, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. The startup was worth $3 billion. That startup was Netflix. But this story is not really about one bad business decision. It is about two completely different ideas of what people want, and why one of those ideas turned out to be exactly right. To understand what happened, you need to picture what watching a movie looked like in the late 1990s. There was no streaming. There was no downloading. If you wanted to watch a film at home, you drove to a store, walked the aisles, picked up a physical cassette tape or disc, and drove home with it. Then, within a day or two, you drove back to return it. If you forgot, you paid a late fee. Blockbuster had built an entire empire on that experience. By 1997, the company operated more than 6,000 stores across the United States. It employed over 60,000 people. It was bringing in nearly $3 billion a year in revenue. At its peak, a new Blockbuster store was opening somewhere in the world every 17 hours. The late fees alone generated around $800 million per year for the company. From the outside, Blockbuster looked invincible. It had the locations, the brand, the customers, and the infrastructure. Any competitor trying to enter the home video market would have to find a way past all of that. Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph, the founders of Netflix, were not trying to tear down Blockbuster. Not at first. They simply saw a problem that Blockbuster was ignoring. Customers were frustrated. The selection in any single store was limited. Driving twice for one movie cost time. And those late fees, small as they seemed, created real resentment. Hastings himself later said he was inspired partly by a $40 late fee he had been charged for returning a copy of Apollo 13 too late. That frustration became a business plan. Netflix launched in 1998 as a simple website where customers could order DVDs by mail. You chose your films online, the discs arrived at your door within a day or two, and you mailed them back in a prepaid envelope when you were done. No driving, no store hours, no late fees. The early version was not perfect. Customers still paid per rental, and shipping times varied. But Hastings and Randolph kept watching what their customers actually did, and what they saw surprised them. People did not just want convenience. They wanted selection. A typical Blockbuster store stocked around 3,000 titles, limited by physical shelf space. Netflix had no shelves. By storing discs in centralized warehouses, they could offer tens of thousands of titles. Obscure films, foreign cinema, older classics, all available. Customers who could never find what they wanted at Blockbuster suddenly had access to nearly everything. Then, in 1999, Netflix made the decision that changed everything. They scrapped the per-rental model entirely and introduced a monthly subscription. For a flat fee, customers could keep DVDs as long as they wanted and exchange them as often as they liked. There were no due dates. There were no late fees. Ever. This was not just a pricing change. It was a completely different relationship with the customer. Blockbuster's entire business model depended on friction. The inconvenience that made customers rush back to return discs, the fees that punished them when they forgot. Netflix removed that friction entirely, and in doing so, they removed the resentment that came with it. Subscription numbers grew steadily. By 2003, Netflix had 1 million subscribers. The model was working. But Hastings knew that mailing physical discs was never going to be the final form of what he was building. He was already thinking about something else. Something that the internet, still young and slow in those years, was not yet ready to deliver. He called it the internet delivery of content. He just had to wait for the technology to catch up. While Netflix was quietly growing, Blockbuster was finally starting to pay attention. And what happened next is one of the most painful examples of a company almost saving itself, and then choosing not to. In 2004, Blockbuster hired a new CEO named John Anioko. He looked at the numbers, saw the threat clearly, and made a decision that shocked his own executives. Blockbuster would eliminate late fees entirely. They would also launch a competing DVD by mail service called Blockbuster Total Access. Customers could order discs online, just like Netflix, but they could also return them in any physical store and immediately pick up a new title in exchange. No waiting for the mail. It was a genuinely clever idea. Blockbuster had something Netflix did not: thousands of physical locations. If they could combine that network with the subscription model, they might actually win. And for a short time, it worked. By 2007, Blockbuster Total Access had signed up roughly 2 million subscribers. Netflix's own subscriber growth slowed noticeably that year. Inside Netflix, executives later admitted they were genuinely worried. Then Blockbuster collapsed from the inside. Eliminating late fees had cost the company around $400 million in lost revenue. The DVD by mail service was expensive to run. Major shareholders, including the activist investor Carl Icahn, were furious about the losses. They pushed the board to remove Antioco. He was replaced by Jim Keyes, who looked at the situation and reached the opposite conclusion. Keyes decided that the future of Blockbuster was not online. He believed customers still wanted stores. He pulled back investment from the mail service. He scaled down the program that had been threatening Netflix. In a 2008 interview, he said he saw no threat from Netflix whatsoever. Within 2 years, Blockbuster had lost the subscribers it had gained. The window had closed. The one moment when Blockbuster might have redirected its enormous resources toward the future, that moment was gone. Meanwhile, the technology Reed Hastings had been waiting for was finally arriving. In 2007, Netflix introduced streaming. At first, it was a small addition to the existing subscription. A limited library of films and television shows that members could watch instantly on their computers. No disc, no waiting, no physical object at all. Just a click, and the movie began. The internet infrastructure of 2007 was still imperfect. Streaming quality was inconsistent. The library was modest, but the direction was unmistakable, and Netflix moved fast. They struck deals with studios, expanded the catalog, and within a few years made streaming the center of the entire business. When smart televisions and smartphones became common, Netflix was already there, already working, already familiar to millions of people. Blockbuster launched its own streaming service in 2008. Almost no one used it. The brand that had once symbolized movie night at home now felt like a relic. The stores, which had once been an advantage, had become an anchor. Each location cost money to staff, to lease, to maintain. As customers canceled memberships and walked away, those fixed costs remained. In 2010, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. At that point, Netflix had more than 20 million subscribers and was growing faster than almost any company in the entertainment industry. So what actually happened here? The common version of this story says Blockbuster was simply too arrogant to see the future coming. But the truth is more specific and more instructive than that. Blockbuster saw the threat. It built a real response. And then it destroyed that response from the inside, because the short-term cost of change felt more dangerous than the long-term cost of standing still. Netflix, by contrast, was never emotionally attached to any particular format. Hastings was not loyal to DVDs. He was loyal to the idea of removing obstacles between people and the stories they wanted to watch. When streaming became possible, switching was natural. When original programming became the next frontier, Netflix moved there too. That willingness to abandon what is working before it stops working is the hardest thing for any successful organization to do. Blockbuster could not do it. Netflix built its entire identity around doing exactly that. The $50 million Blockbuster turned down in 2000 would have bought them the future. Instead, they paid for it in a different way, slowly, then all at once. If you made it this far, you're exactly the kind of curious person this channel is made for. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more fascinating stories, mysteries, and discoveries from history, science, and beyond. And let me know in the comments, what topic should we explore next? Until then, stay curious, stay wondering.